There are moments in a funeral that no camera fully captures. Moments that live only in the memory of the people who were standing in the room. Moments where the weight of everything, the life, the loss, the love, lands all at once in the space between one breath and the next. For the Osmond family, that moment came at the casket. Alan Ralph Osmond, 76, passed away at his home in Lehi, Utah on April 20, 2026, after a courageous 40-year battle with multiple sclerosis. He was surrounded by his wife Susan and all 8 of his sons. And on Saturday, May 2, 12 days after he left, the family gathered at the Suncrest Stake Center in Orem, Utah, for the final rites of a man who spent his entire life building something larger than himself. In this video, the casket details what the viewing looked like, what the burial meant, and what the people standing in that room understood in the most quiet and profound way about the man they were saying goodbye to. First, the viewing. Because before the funeral service began, before the eulogies and the hymns and the tears and the gratitude, the family opened the casket, and the world was invited in. Public viewings were held on Friday evening, May 1 from 6:00 p.m. to 8:00 p.m., and again on Saturday morning, May 2 from 10:00 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., both at the Suncrest Stake Center at 95 North 600 West in Orem, Utah. People stood in line, fans who had grown up with the Osmonds on their television screens, church members who had served alongside him, community members who had attended Stadium of Fire year after year without knowing that the man who co-founded it was also the man who served as cubmaster at their ward. Members of the MS community who had heard "I may have MS, but MS does not have me," and held on to that sentence during their own hardest days. They all came, and when they reached the casket, they saw a man who looked exactly like what he was: peaceful, finished, at rest after 40 years of fighting a disease that took his body inch by inch while his spirit refused to follow. Attendees noted that the open casket, while difficult for some, brought something unexpected alongside the grief: a sense of closure, a confrontation with reality that, rather than making the loss feel more brutal, made it feel more real and therefore more possible to begin to carry. Because grief that is not faced cannot be moved through, and Alan Osmond's family faced it together. Standing around the man who had always been the one to hold them together, letting themselves fall apart in the same room, in the same moment, held by each other the way he had always held them. Now let's talk about what that casket represented, because the choice to hold an open casket viewing is never incidental. It is a statement about who the person was, about how the family wants the world to see them in their final form. Alan Osmond was a man who spent 40 years fighting a progressive, degenerative disease in full view of the public. He did not hide his MS. He used it. He spoke about it at fundraisers, in interviews, in every conversation where someone needed to hear that the thing attacking their body did not have the authority to define their life. He said it plainly and without performance: "I may have MS, but MS does not have me." And so in death, as in life, the family chose openness, chose to let people come close, chose not to shield or protect or manage the optics of grief. They opened the casket because Alan Osmond never closed the door on the people who loved him, and his final rites reflected the man he had always been. But wait, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood beside someone in a casket and suddenly understood, with a clarity you couldn't access while they were alive, exactly who they were? Not the public version, not the biography, but the specific, irreducible human being who had been in the room all along. That is what the Osmond siblings describe when they speak about what these final days have felt like. Donnie, who called him my protector and my guide and said he owed him more than he could ever fully express. Merrill, who sat beside him in his final days and received a whispered mission in his ear, a dying man's last instruction not to grieve but to keep going, to finish the work, to let people know what they were trying to say. Marie, Jay, Jimmy, Verl, Tom. All of them gathered around the eldest performing Osmond, the one who started singing to raise money for hearing aids, who led a group of brothers onto the stage of the Andy Williams Show, who wrote and produced over 20 albums and sold over 100 million records and helped produce a presidential inauguration. All of them standing in that Orem church, looking at the man they had spent their entire lives beside, and feeling, alongside the grief, an enormous, complete, overflowing gratitude. Because he was there, for all of it, every note of every song, every complicated year, every comeback and every setback and every chapter that the public saw and every chapter that belonged only to them. He was there, and now the casket is closed, and the circle that stood around it holds everything he gave them. Then came the burial, and this is the moment that belongs entirely to the family. Alan Osmond was laid to rest in a private, family-only service in Utah County on Saturday, May 2. No cameras, no fans, no live stream access, no public presence of any kind. Susan, 8 sons, Michael, Nathan, Doug, David, Scott, John, Alex, and Tyler, 30 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, his surviving siblings, and the people who knew him in the rooms where nobody was performing, where the music had stopped for the night, where the disease was making itself known and he was choosing one more time to not let it have the final word. That circle stood at the graveside, and whatever was said there, whatever hymn was sung, whatever prayer was offered, whatever hands were held in the cold Utah air belongs only to them, and it will stay with them, the way the best and most sacred things always do. The family's final request was not for flowers, not for a memorial, not for an outpouring of sympathy gifts or tributes sent to an address in Orem. It was this: consider a donation to the missionary fund of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so that more people can go to Denmark, to Chile, to South Africa, to Spain, to Ghana, to Japan, to Michigan, to wherever the next mission takes them, so that the work continues, so that the doors Alan Osmond spent his entire life helping to open stay open for the next person who needs to walk through them. He started his life's work raising money for his brother's hearing aids. He ended it directing his own farewell donations toward sending missionaries into the world. The circle is complete. There are missions serving right now in Colorado, Nicaragua, Japan, Ghana, with Michigan and more still coming. And somewhere in each of those missions is a young person who is there in part because Alan Osmond lived the way he lived, sang the way he sang, believed the way he believed. Not the albums, not the awards, not the 2 Royal Command performances for Queen Elizabeth or the Reagan inauguration or the Donnie and Marie show. The missionaries. The casket is closed. The burial is done. The family is home, carrying 40 years of watching a man refuse to quit, now having to figure out for the first time in their lives what it means to go on without him. Donnie felt him immediately. "I have felt him," he wrote. "He has not left me." And Meryl is honoring the whispered mission, the plan. Let people know what we were trying to say. He is free, he is whole, he is home. Rest well, Alan. June 22, 1949, April 20, 2026. The engine has rested, but everything it built is still running. Thank you for watching.